Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your schools.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Big Ideas in Education. We're so excited to have you here. I am Dr. Sarah Boulos-Fye from Somerset Academy Schools, joined, of course, by my co-host, Ryan Kairalla of Draw College. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Sarah. Great to be chatting with you.
Absolutely. What do you want to talk about today?
All right. We've spoken in the past on this show, Sarah, about the importance of encouraging a growth mindset in students, or the belief that one's abilities and situations are not set in stone and can be improved with hard work and dedication. Obviously, as we've said, we've talked about the role that getting our students to adopt, and our teachers, for in addition to adopting a growth mindset, how that can help achieve great outcomes. And as one recent article in Edutopia notes, one particular school subject in which students can benefit from adopting a growth mindset is personal finance. From the article, quote, "Helping students understand how to differentiate between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset can be helpful as they start to shift their mindset to positive beliefs about their financial well-being. The article encourages personal finance teachers to empower their students to adopt a how can I mindset as opposed to an I can't mindset when it comes to financial decision making, as well as teach students to embrace mistakes in financial planning as learning opportunities. By taking the time to show students some common mistakes that people make with money and engage them to suggest better solutions on how to learn from failure, students can become empowered to make more prudent financial decisions." And the article, Sarah, actually has a pretty good example of what this can look like in the personal finance class setting. Basically, what it instructs the teacher to do is to walk students through a simple kind of personal finance hypothetical where you say, you want to go to a concert with your friends. It's going to be in 6 weeks. The concert costs $200. You make $50 a week walking your neighbor's dogs. You save $50 a month, and your monthly expenses include daily lunch from your favorite deli, $100, your cell phone bill, $40, and a YouTube subscription of $10. By the way, you don't have to write any of this down, so don't feel like you have to calculate anything.
I'm sweating already.
I know, right? And also, it's worth noting that you have $50 saved for an emergency, and your parents are not willing to help you pay for this concert. What are you going to do? And a fixed mindset approach to personal finance would probably have their students look at how much the concert ticket costs and look at all their expenses and say, well, I'm not going to be able to save enough to go to the concert, and so I'm not going to go, and that's sort of the end of the lesson. But a growth mindset approach to personal finance would encourage the students to ask the question, how can I, as opposed to I can or I can't. So in this case, have the students ask, well, how can I go to the concert? And work with other students to come up with a plan of action. Could you walk more dogs to earn more money? Could you get an after-school job? Could you bring lunch to school every day instead of buying lunch from the deli? Or maybe have the students ask themselves, maybe it's more important for me to pay myself first. So I'm not going to go to the concert, but because it's more important for me to save up more money for an emergency fund. But giving the students some of these hypotheticals to figure out how they can be an active agent in their own financial planning and not just be a victim of whatever their current financial circumstances are is a really effective way to use growth mindset as a way to really bring personal finance classes to life.
That's really interesting. I like that. I wonder if they're also, I don't know, I'm exploring this myself. I'm wondering, is there a way that we talk about investment instead? So maybe we forego a month of this and invest it, see what happens. I don't know. This seems like a really great way to open up the conversation, not just about growth mindset, but about the content. And I think that growth mindset is, I always try to tell my students and other people that I talk about growth mindset about, I try to think of it as, what do we do when we get to a door? When we get to a closed door, do we turn around? Do we knock on the door? Do we open the door? Do we fiddle with it a little bit? Do we look for a key, right? What do we do when we get to a closed door? And in a lot of areas of our kids' lives, I think using the concert as an example is fantastic. That's a closed door. The concert is a closed door. Now, how much are you willing to fight for it, to look for a solution to it, to knock on that door, to see what's behind the door? So how do we use that same agency in other areas of their life, like college, like looking at their academics, and how do we make sure that we're using that same closed door mentality in other areas that are worth fighting for, but may not feel like it when you're 15 years old.
I like the idea, and I'm with you on all that. And I like the idea of us really reinforcing this in the personal finance setting, right? Because when we teach growth mindset in academic subjects, we're not just doing it to encourage better student learning outcomes in those subjects, but we're also giving students an opportunity to build those growth mindset muscles. And the idea that if we can encourage students to adopt a growth mindset in their academic classes, they can adopt that same behavior throughout their adult lives. But what's exciting to me about encouraging growth mindset in personal finance is it really kind of gives students practice on adopting that growth mindset in their adult life. They're going to have a relationship with money for the rest of their lives after they graduate school, and actually right then and now when they're in school. And so this to me is like really kind of a real world application to this very important psychological concept. And it's an exciting prospect.
Absolutely.
So I think we're kind of in a similar theme here, Sarah, because I think both of our stories are kind of talking about the financial impacts that can be imposed on students. And from what you're telling me, the university story that you have has a unique solution.
Well, hopefully it's not unique, but yeah, let's talk a little bit about this. Most of us know that and I know we've talked about it on the show before, that a lot of the students in our K-12 schools are battling food insecurity, right? Which is why we have a large number of students on free and reduced lunch programs, right? Where they are able to get reduced priced or free meals from their school every day. And unfortunately, for a lot of kids, sometimes the free meals they get from school are the only guaranteed meals that they have every single week. And that is an interesting issue when we think about what happens once they graduate, right? And Felician University in Rutherford, New Jersey announced that they are partnering with Hunger Free Campus, a federal grant program administered in New Jersey by the Secretary of Higher Education to eradicate food insecurity at this university level. Again, we've talked about it before, but they mention here in the article that we're going to link that food insecurity rates have only increased dramatically since COVID-19, which obviously have a very dramatic effect on college students and their academic performance. I don't have to be the first one to say, because there's been so much talk about the cost of food lately, right? With supply chain issues, avian flu causing egg prices to go through the roof. Food is expensive for all of us. So imagine when you are a young college student who may have had some support in high school getting food, and now you don't. Our students' success and overall well-being is our top priority. Janelle Owens, Vice President of Student Affairs, said, "Hunger on college campuses is one of the greatest obstacles to student success nationwide. We're committed to addressing that problem by not only eliminating the stigma associated with hunger, but also by providing practical, hunger-free programming to students." I was really interested about this hunger-free grant program because it said it was a federal grant. So I did a little homework, and I found out that in Florida, a similar bill was proposed in 2022, just around this time last year. But unfortunately, it died in some subcommittee in March of 2022. So I'm going to keep doing my homework. And let me tell you, we got to see how we can get this going. It's a federal program, which means that it's available to everyone around the country. But the way that it's implemented obviously will vary with how your states interpret and use the money. So I would love to see this kind of program and partnership happen throughout the country so that kids, even though they're not kids anymore, right? 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds can get this kind of support as they go into the university and college level. Obviously, we want to see that persistence of our lower income students and be able to complete school. We don't want the fact that they can't get access to food, a basic human need, to be the reason they're not able to be in school.
That's really intriguing. And obviously, when we talk about food insecurity in education, our attention immediately turns to the K-12 setting.
Absolutely.
Particularly because of the focus of this podcast tends to be more K-12 than higher ed, although that's slowly changing. We're sprinkling in some good higher ed stories lately. But also, I think popular discourse and the news talks about when we talk about food insecurity, it's in the K-12 levels, particularly during the pandemic, where we realized when all the students went into virtual learning, oh no, we had this huge gap where students who were regularly getting food from school aren't able to do it anymore. And so now that this is on everybody's mind more than it's probably ever been in recent time, it's a good time to shine the light on the fact that this can also be an issue in higher education. Plenty of low-income students are going to college, and certainly hunger doesn't dissipate from the day you graduate from high school, and all those same issues that were affecting students when they're in high school can still be the case when they're in college. So we need something to fill this gap when the students get to higher education. And I'll plead ignorance on this. I did not know that there were existing federal programs to address this need at the higher education level. And it sounds like it's one of those things where you have to do some interaction with the federal government and the state governments to unlock those funds for in the state setting. And that's, I'm sure that's its own labyrinth. But this is a really powerful concept to bring to my attention.
Yeah, and I'm gonna push a little further into that concept where during the pandemic, when we were all in quarantine and realizing there were actually a lot of funds available that became available at that time to support us in K-12 schools by providing not just food that we could give our students, but they provided breakfast and lunch. And I can tell you, as somebody who works really closely with a lot of K-12 schools, those funds have basically run out, right? We're not able to do free breakfast and free lunch for unlimited kids now. And now that the process is more complicated for families to qualify for free meals, I can tell you that I'm seeing a huge issue of kids coming to school, not having breakfast, not eating. It becomes an attendance issue. It becomes a focus issue. And of course, this is anecdotal. This is based on my experience working with schools with low-income families. But I personally have seen a dramatic change from the way that our kids were coming to school when they knew that breakfast was available to how they are coming into school right now.
I'd be really interested, and I know this data is out there, to see some of the data about when we see students at community colleges, commuter colleges, 2-year colleges, if they do drop out, if they don't finish their degree, how much of that is because of lack of resources, say, contributing from food insecurity?
Absolutely.
These kind of institutions, community colleges, commuter colleges, 2-year colleges, they're on the front lines of a lot of what we need to do in this country in terms of anti-poverty, and providing that next step for students to be able to have the kind of jobs that are going to allow them to have a stable life. It would be a shame to lose students from that lifeline because we just can't get them fed. And it's particularly a shame if the legislative mechanisms are available and some states just haven't had the political will or otherwise to unlock those funds for their students as they have in New Jersey.
Absolutely. And I'd love to see this happen in more places. And I think it's funny that you mentioned that we're talking about it as a university issue, but really I think about this all the time as a person in K-12, and I spent so much of my teaching career as a high school teacher. We have all this emphasis in the next phase, right? What happens after secondary for our students? And for so many of us, the conversation is academic, right? What are we going to do to get them into the college or career of their choice, right? How do we get them to meet their academic goals? But so many of our students, if they are to get into the programs that they want or look at the academic future that we've been preparing them for, once that becomes a reality and they are 18 years old, 19 years old, and cannot afford to exist in that world, it's a very harsh reality. And that's why we see persistence rates of students of color being so low. This is why we see persistence rates of students with financial needs from low SES families being so low, because the support mechanisms that we've been trying to build throughout K-12 disappear. And it's not, I don't think it's only on the university system to put those support pieces together. I think it's a partnership, right? That we can continue these mechanisms of support to see that persistence.
It's very well said.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'd love to hear what you all are thinking about this topic or anything else you'd like to talk about with regards to education and what's going on today. Please feel free to reach out to us using the hashtag Big Ideas in Education or at Academica Media. We love to hear from you. We love to learn from you, and we love to share what we're learning about. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.